Yes, on promoting diversification, differentiation, and harmonization of the higher education systems at the institutional, national, regional, and continental levels. We will, just a minute. The purpose of this webinar is to enable African countries for us to consolidate and assure the quality of our higher education provisions against locally, regionally, and internationally agreed upon benchmarks of excellence. We are, during the course of this webinar, share ideas on how we benchmark and how we assure standards in education, taking into account the differences in our educational systems and the goal of the African Union to foster harmonization of the higher education systems. I have an eminent panel to share their thoughts with all of us today. I'll be moderating. We have Mr. Shem Okebukola, who is already online. I just sent him a text, a chat that we appreciate the support that ADEA, under its leadership, is giving to us and supporting this webinar. He's the acting executive secretary of the Association for Development of Education in Africa, ADEA. We also have already, seated Dr. Violet Makuku, who is a quality assurance expert in AAU. I'll be introducing them in a little bit more detail as we go along. We are hoping that the former Minister of Education of Ghana, Professor Nana Jane Okpokwa-Ejemang, will join us. Professor Michael Faborode is already in Accra for the IAU conference, and I'm sure he's going to be with us shortly. He will be sitting on the panel at the AAU headquarters. And of course, we have Professor Salifu Mohammed, the Executive Secretary of the National Council for Tertiary Education in Ghana. I'm here, as I mentioned to you, in the office of the Vice Chancellor of Great University of Ibadan. University of Ibadan, as you know, is one of the founding universities in Africa, colonial British Africa. And I'm going to ask him, if he doesn't mind, Vice Chancellor, sir, can you just come for 1 second to say hello to our participants? You're not going to see them. They are from several countries, from the UK, from Ivory Coast, from Calabar, from everywhere. They are almost everywhere. So the VC is coming. Professor Abel Olayinka is here, and he's going to say a word. We're just running. Yeah, just Vice Chancellor, just greet us. We can't come to your territory and not. Yeah, so that's Vice Chancellor University of Ibadan. Yeah, yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to host the eminent Professor Peter Okebukola for this webinar series.
Thank you.
So you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Thank you.
I wish you a nice interaction across our beautiful continent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. So that's our panel. We're going to have contributions from Zimbabwe Council for Higher Education and also Inter-University Council for East Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, the thrust of our webinar today has three strands. I've called it three thrusts, as you can see from my slide here. We are looking at diversification. We are looking at differentiation. And we're looking at harmonization. They will appear to be strange bedfellows, but they are, all together at the end of the day. And we'll be looking at how we promote these three thrusts: diversification, differentiation, harmonization at the institutional level. I know, for instance, that Professor Gabriel Kini, your institution, Professor Jean Kwasi in Ivory Coast, Dr. Eta in Calabar, Dr. Bola from the UK. In your different institutions, how do you promote this? Three. And then at the national level, at the level of our nations, how do you promote These three. And at the continental level, how do you pronounce this thing? That is the long and short of our story for this webinar. So, Africa got together in 2015 and they ended up with a declaration and action plan, which is the first African higher education summit on revitalizing higher education for Africa's future. And it came up with some resolutions and action plan. There are several of them, as I said, several resolutions. The one that concerns us today is number 2, if you like, number 2 sub-theme, which, as you can see here, is exactly what we have as a theme for this webinar. Promote diversification, differentiation, and harmonization of higher education systems at these levels, just like we said during the introduction. And it has a number of action points. So it's an action plan. So I've just extracted just one element from it here, the following policy options. If not done, you need this one. So I'll be coming to it in a little while. Now, how do we implement that roadmap? And that is putting our boots on the ground. How do we implement at the level of our universities or polytechnics, our higher education institutions? How do we implement at the level of the nation, of the continent? So let's take on the 3 thrusts one by one. I said diversification. What does diversification mean? For me, diversification is what I've indicated here. Varieties in input, varieties in process, varieties in output in the higher education system. If I asked all of our participants today, you will note that we're all different in terms of the input into our universities, by way of students, by way of staff, by way of curriculum, by way of process, how we teach, how we teach our students how to learn, and by way of output, the different research and graduate output from our systems. So that's the diversification. And it reflects the different types of higher education institutions and systems that we have in our countries by way of vision. For instance, the vision of a University of Agriculture, like we have in Nigeria. We have 6 of them. The visions are different from the visions of the National Open University of Nigeria, different from 7 universities of technology that we have, different from conventional universities. So visions are different. That's the diversity. And variety, they say, is the spice of life. We have diversities also in the strategic goals, diversities in curricula, diversities in gender, diversities in language, socioeconomic variables. So we have those diversities. For me, that's the meaning, recognizing these diversities. And let's move on now to differentiation in higher education. What does it mean? Like I said, this will appear, the 3 of them, diversification, differentiation, harmonization, will appear to be strange bedfellows. But as you can see, they are brothers and sisters. Differentiation in this case, for instance, will mean establishing and recognizing the differences among the different types and elements in the higher education system. Let's take universities. In Nigeria, we have universities, we have polytechnics, we have colleges of education, and I'm sure they are what you have equivalents of this in all countries in Africa. And you have all other types of higher education institutions. So they are different. So we must be able to differentiate them, and we're able to, another variety of flavor to differentiation would be the degrees and diplomas that are issued out or offered by the different institutions. So that's differentiation. Now let's go to the 3rd one. That one brings everybody together, brings the brothers and sisters together as a family. That's harmonization. What does it mean? For me, harmonization is a way of combining elements to foster synergy, elements in differentiation, elements in harmonization, elements in the other one to foster synergy and improve performance. So let's take the example of harmonization of national quality assurance agencies, which is what the African Union is promoting. And we all are, I'm sure, part of it in one way or the other. So let's look at how we promote differentiation, harmonization, and diversification at the institutional level. That's the level of my university, Lagos State University, or this university, University of Ibadan, or your universities. How do you promote the three elements? So there are two things that are said here, and I'm going to be asking our panelists. I've just been informed that Professor Nana Okebukola is not able to join us, but there's one giant in higher education in Africa that I'm told has joined us. And she's going to be standing in for the Minister of Education of Ghana. She, I'm sure, will be Minister of Education in Ghana one day very soon. When she comes on, don't let me blow my trumpet of her so much. You're going to say, and I'm going to introduce her at the appropriate time. So I'll be asking her, Fabor, if she's able to join us also, that is Secretary General of the Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigeria, to help us to expatiate this aspect of it. And there are two elements here. Promotion at the institutional level will be keeping to assigned missions. The mission of your university, you keep to it. You are a university of technology, keep to your mission. And do not now go and be focusing on business, accounting, and all these non-technology programs. And also to embrace pedagogies that will emphasize participation, emphasize creativity, emphasize invention, emphasize innovative citizenship and new technologies and learning. So we're going to be looking at this later. What about at the national level, at the level of our countries? There are 4 elements that have been provided for us in the roadmap, in the action plan that is the resource material for this webinar. One is to establish a legal framework, and Higher Education Act to oversee system structure, governance, and all of this. I am not going to read all of these elements because I'm going to expect that Professor Salifu, Mohammed, the Executive Secretary, NCTE of Ghana, will walk us through this. In an event that is not able to join us, I can come back to this and expand on it. Now let's move continental. Let's go to Africa. How are we expecting that diversification, differentiation, and harmonization will be promoted at the continental level? These are the elements that are provided in the roadmap. 5 elements: support, differentiation, and diversification of higher education, and it goes on. As I said, time will not permit me to go through all of this. We are going to get a copy of this, you are going to get this slide at the end of this presentation. But I want to focus on one of them. That is the establishment of the Continental Agency, the Pan-African Quality Assurance Framework. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the African Union and the European Union Commission that has been supporting the African Union to make this to happen. And in the next few slides, I'll be letting you know how that has been promoted. What are the historical roots and where are we going? Where are we now and where are we going? So that may be one of the major things that you will take out of this webinar. That's you gain some awareness of this development in terms of promoting differentiation, harmonization at the continental level. So there's this Agenda 2063. I wonder how many of us know it. I know all of us know it. Agenda 2063 is a future for Africa, where Africa wants to be. We want to be the best region, the best continent in the whole of this world. Paradise on earth. And to build an integrated Africa will demand a harmonized education system. So that's where we are going. To have, there's diversity, we'll recognize diversity, we'll recognize differentiation, but amidst all of this, we'll pick out all the common elements, and there are many of them, and put them together, and that will be the framework that will be our driver, the driver of Africa in the years to come. Now, I took this particular slide from Walden Taise, who is the senior education expert in AUC. That gives us some summary view of the AU harmonization strategy, how AU has worked with all countries to develop a plan for harmonizing educational systems in Africa. We have political commitment, we have cooperation in the form of exchange, joint curriculum and student mobility, and the core areas, and all of this. I'll come to this, a variant of this slide in a little while. So that led to the development of what is known as the Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework. I'm happy, humbly letting you know that I had the privilege, of having to do the feasibility study, along with a very scholarly European colleague, Bart Fontaine, to develop the feasibility study, which has moved this process a little bit far. So there are some instruments that are already in place or will be in place for this Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework. Let me put it very simply. Here we are from Ivory Coast. We are from Nigeria. You are from Ghana. You are from Zimbabwe, from Lesotho, from all these countries that are here. You have your quality assurance agencies. We have in Nigeria the National Universities Commission, where I served as Executive Secretary 16 years ago. We have in Ghana, we have in Lesotho. Lesotho one is going very well, CHE. Zimbabwe one, solid too, CHE. So all of this will offer quality assurance for the institutions under them. But beyond this, an institution like University of Ibadan, where I am, can decide to take NUC accreditation and just rest there and just say, that's fine. Or can decide to take continental accreditation. And that will elevate the profile of the University of Ibadan very, very, very high. The students will be happy to say, oh, my program, BSc Engineering, has continental accreditation. So to make the continental accreditation thing to happen, so the African Union, supported by European Union, is putting together a framework for the Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework that will lead to the development of a Pan-African Quality Assurance Agency. So it's that agency that will set minimum standards for all the countries, now conducting accreditation, and then we're going to have continental accreditation. The following instruments have already in place or been developed: the African Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance, let's see now, the Continental Qualifications Framework, the African Quality Rating Mechanism, that has been on, and AQRM. In fact, Dr. Wodentense Ioannis, who I'm quoting on this slide, he is the person in charge of this AQRM, and we have been using it. And only recently, I think some few months ago, we concluded a round of review of, I think, 15 universities, continent-wide. So that is being used as an instrument to foster quality in the region. And there's the Addis Convention, the precursor being the Arusha Convention, the old revised Arusha Convention, or the new Addis Convention. This convention provides for mobility of staff and students across our continent. It provides for mutual recognition of degrees, diplomas, and certificates. And then we have the African credit accumulation and transfer system. So these things are happening, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful things are happening in our continent, all aimed at harmonizing our educational systems, especially the higher education system. And then we're hoping to have the Continental Register for Quality Assurance Agencies and Quality Assured Higher Education Institutions. So the implementing agency in this case now will be the Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Agency. So I told you I'm going to be referring you to another slide. So this is the one where you have, there is the HAQUA initiative. By the way, some people want to call it hacker. I'm not going to call it hacker because they're going to hack my system. And the way it is written is QA, is qua, not car. But that's my own. They can call it, I mean, it's idiosyncratic. I mean, it's your choice. I would like to call it HAQUA initiative. Others would want to call it hacker initiative. So this initiative has a number of elements. Has the ASGQA, AQRM that I mentioned earlier, and all of these are within PACWAF and the Continental Accreditation Agency, and all are within the framework of the harmonization that I've been telling you about. I have a few more minutes, so let me just rush to focus on the HAQUA initiative to update you on what is happening. This slide is courtesy of Paula Ronen. She presented this in our last conference in September, a few months back. Actually, less than a month back. So the HAQUA initiative is being serviced by a consortium, the EU Service Contract 2015-2018, and is implemented by University of Barcelona, that's coordinating AAU, DAAD, EUA, and ENQUA, complementary partners. Now, the objective will be to contribute to and support the harmonization of higher education programs and the creation of a revitalized, distinctive, attractive, and globally competitive African higher education space through enhanced intra-African collaboration. So that's the development of that harmonized thing. It will also contribute to PACWAF. PACWAF, again, like you know, is Pan-African Quality Assurance and Accreditation Framework through these mechanisms that I've listed on this slide. And these other ones are also part of the contribution to PACWAF. I'll come to this towards the end of this slide. So there are three major activities for this year. As I said, I'm focusing this last segment on the harmonization efforts at the continental end. And narrowing down to the HAQUA initiative and letting you know there are three major activities for 2017. One is a technical working group for the development of African standards and guidelines for quality assurance, ASGQA. That one is going on very vigorously. I think we're almost concluding that leg of the journey. The training course on a common language for quality assurance in Africa. That's important. We have diversity of languages, Francophone, Arabophone, Anglophone, all of those phones. And institutional evaluation employing the AQRM. So the HAQUA initiative training course has been concluded, 2 groups, French and English, and you can see what the features are here. As I close, I'd like to let you know technical working group for the development of ASGQA. The first draft, ASGQA, is African Standards and Guidelines. African Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance. They are just like the minimum standards that are set at the national level for the quality assurance agencies to use for their quality assurance operations. First draft in 4 languages, online consultation. Second draft, September, consultation workshop, end of October. Then the final draft will be next year, and it goes on that way. The next steps for the African Standards and Guidelines for Quality Assurance consultation workshop will be finalized, and the political endorsement of this will happen at the end of it. So these are also the next steps to build capacity of the quality assurance agencies in developing new methodologies and then to further support development of the quality culture. So I now want to yield to our panelists. As I said, I'll take them in the order that I've listed them here because I've asked that they speak on the institutional, the national, and the continental in this order. So my pleasure to ask, let me see if she's online, representative of, let's see. I think we may have to go, let me try to get her because she was to be online here. Okay, maybe what we will do, because I cannot see her online, I can see Pascal. I can see him from Finland. So let me take Dr. Makuku. Dr. Makuku, can you come on now to let us have your contribution on the continental? Can our technical group from Accra let Dr. Makuku come on? Please go on. Hello, please go on. Yes, go on. Yes, we can hear you. Accra, we are waiting for you. Yes.
Identified at a time when then the government sector came up to make up the agreement that there was need to have this common understanding, common standards, which were going to enable and enhance more student staff. We have the 1981 Arusha.
Accra, you are breaking. You are breaking.
Convention where more than 34 ministers alongside the this
Accra, your audio is not so good. Accra, your audio is poor. Your audio is very poor, Accra. We can't hear you well. It's breaking. Yeah, so dear participants, we have come to the end of the webinar, and I'm sorry that we had some challenge with the other speakers, especially the Accra group. Professor Nana Jane Opukwa-Jeman was waiting to share her thoughts with us on this subject. Also, Professor, all the other, Mr. Shem Okore-Bodo, acting executive secretary, was also waiting, to be with us. Professor Goski Alabi, that's the person I wanted to introduce to you. I'm sure that one day, very soon, she will make Minister of Education in Ghana because she's such a very highly intelligent, highly self-propelled, and she's just wonderful. You you'll have been excited about our presentation. Also, Dr. Makuku, who was speaking to us, but we couldn't get to hear her. So in this session, we have looked at the meaning of differentiation. We have looked at the meaning of harmonization, and we have looked at how at the senior level, at the national level, at the continental level, we can take actions based on the action plan of the first, and I'll just go back to it if I may, the action plan of the, that's my first slide, the action plan of the, yeah, that's this one, the action plan of the first African Higher Education Summit on revitalizing higher education for Africa's future. So on behalf of AAU, on behalf of ADEA, and with thanks to Trust Africa for providing the funds, I'd like to thank you all for making it to this session. And please watch out for an announcement for a reconvened session of this webinar. And I'd like to assure you that the challenge that Accra had today will not surface again. So best wishes to all our people, to Professor Gabriel Kinney, Dr. Jean Kwasi from Ivory Coast, Dr. Eta from Calabar, Dr. Bola from England, Pascal Do from Finland, Stefano De Cupis, let's see others, Mami Richardson, yeah, I've talked about Professor Jean Desire Kwasi. Let's see who else that we have here. Albert Okpare, Professor Akali, and all the others for joining us, about 17 in the group, spread all over Africa. So until next time, it is bye from me, the moderator, Peter Okebukola.